The hallways of Westlake Academy buzzed with activity as students rushed to their next classes. The prestigious school stood tall and proud, its brick walls housing some of the most talented young minds in the city. Among the sea of familiar faces was a new one, barely noticeable as she kept her head down, clutching her books tightly against her chest. May had arrived at Westlake Academy exactly 3 weeks into the fall semester. Being the new kid was hard enough, but joining a school where friendships and cliques had already been established made it even harder. At 16, she wasn't exactly looking to make a grand entrance, preferring instead to blend into the background until she found her footing. "Excuse me," she mumbled as she squeezed past a group of students blocking the hallway. No one moved. No one even seemed to hear her. With a small sigh, she took a detour, making herself even smaller as she navigated the crowded corridor. Westlake wasn't just any school. It was known throughout the region for its exceptional academic programs, but what truly set it apart was its music department. The school had produced musicians who went on to play with prestigious orchestras across the country. Their walls were decorated with trophies and certificates, a testament to the talent that walked these halls. May's first few days consisted mostly of getting lost, eating lunch alone, and speaking only when a teacher called on her in class. Her answers were always correct but delivered in such a soft voice that most teachers had to ask her to repeat herself. This often resulted in snickers from her classmates, which only made her retreat further into her shell. "Did you finish the history assignment?" a voice asked from behind her. May turned around, surprised that someone was talking to her. A boy with glasses and a friendly smile waited for her response. "Yes," she said. "It wasn't too difficult." "I'm Tom," he said, extending his hand. "You're in my biology class, too." "I'm May," she replied, shaking his hand briefly before letting go. It was the first real conversation she'd had with anyone her age since arriving. "You don't talk much, do you?" Tom observed, not unkindly. May shrugged. "Not really. That's cool. Some people talk too much anyway," he said with a laugh. "I've got to get to class, but maybe I'll see you at lunch." Before May could respond, Tom disappeared into the crowd, leaving her standing there with a small smile on her face. Maybe things were looking up. That afternoon, May found herself wandering the east wing of the school during her free period. Most students used this time to hang out in the courtyard or catch up on homework in the library, but May was drawn to the faint sound of music coming from down the hall. As she got closer, the sound became clearer, a piano being played with precision and passion. She followed the melody until she reached a large room with wide windows that let in streams of sunlight. Inside, a group of students were gathered around a magnificent grand piano. The instrument gleamed under the lights, its polished surface reflecting the faces of those around it. A girl with long dark hair sat at the bench, her fingers dancing across the keys as the others watched in admiration. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. "Brilliant as always, Lily," said an older woman who May assumed was the music teacher. "That piece will definitely secure your spot in the winter showcase." May stood in the doorway, mesmerized. The music room was unlike any she had seen before. Along with the grand piano, there were violins, cellos, flutes, and other instruments displayed in glass cases. Awards and photographs of past students performing on grand stages decorated the walls. "Can I help you?" the teacher asked, noticing May hovering at the entrance. All eyes turned to her and May felt her cheeks grow warm. "I was just listening," she said quietly. "The music was beautiful." "Thank you," Lily said, her voice cool and confident. "Are you new here?" May nodded. "I transferred a few days ago. Do you play?" another student asked, gesturing toward the piano. Before May could answer, Lily spoke up. "This isn't just any piano. It's a Steinway concert grand. The school received it as a donation from a famous composer who graduated from here. Only the top students in the music program are allowed to use it." "I was just passing by," May said quickly, taking a step back. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You're welcome to watch," the teacher said kindly. "We're preparing for the winter showcase. It's a big event here at Westlake." May nodded and quietly took a seat in the back of the room. For the next hour she watched as different students performed pieces they had been working on. Each one was more impressive than the last, and the competitive atmosphere was palpable. These weren't just students who enjoyed music. They were serious musicians with dreams and ambitions. As the days passed, May found herself returning to the music room during her free period. She never participated, never spoke up, just sat in the back and listened. Sometimes Tom would join her, whispering information about the different performers. That's Jack on the violin. He's been playing since he was 4. And the girl with the red hair is Anna. She won a national competition last year for her cello performance. May soaked up every bit of information, fascinated by this world of music and passion. But it was always the piano that captured her attention the most. The way it could sound so different depending on who was playing it. Sometimes bold and dramatic, other times soft and melancholic. One afternoon, May arrived at the music room to find it unusually empty. Only a few students were there, including Lily and her friends, but the teacher was nowhere to be seen. Mrs. Reed had to step out for a meeting with the principal, Tom explained when he arrived a few minutes later. They're discussing budget allocations for the spring trip to the symphony. The students took advantage of the teacher's absence to relax, their formal practice session turning into casual conversation and laughter. Lily remained at the piano, lightly playing a simple tune as she chatted with her friends. May sat in her usual spot, but today something felt different. As she watched Lily's casual attitude toward the magnificent instrument, a strange feeling stirred within her. The piano seemed to be calling to her, beckoning her forward. Before she could change her mind, May stood up and walked toward the group. Her heart pounded in her chest and her palms were sweaty, but she kept going until she reached the piano. "Excuse me," she said, her voice barely audible above the chatter. Lily looked up, surprised to see the quiet new girl standing there. "Yes, I was wondering," May began, then paused to take a deep breath. "May I play something?" The room fell silent. Then one of Lily's friends let out a laugh. "Is she serious?" Lily looked May up and down, taking in her simple clothes and shy demeanor. "You want to play this piano?" she asked, her tone making it clear how absurd she found the request. May nodded, her resolve wavering under the scrutiny of the group. "Why would we let a nobody touch our piano?" another student said, not bothering to lower his voice. "Do you even know what this instrument is worth?" "I just thought," May started. "This isn't a toy for beginners," Lily interrupted. "This piano is for serious musicians, people who have dedicated their lives to the craft." The cruel words stung, but something kept May standing there instead of retreating to her corner as she usually would. Maybe it was the weeks of sitting silently, watching and listening. Maybe it was the memory of countless hours spent on a much humbler instrument. Or maybe it was simply the need to prove to herself that she belonged here, in this room filled with music and possibility. "I understand," she said quietly, "but I would still like to try." Lily exchanged glances with her friends, a smirk forming on her lips. "Well, this should be entertaining at least. Go ahead, the bench is all yours." As Lily stood up and stepped aside with exaggerated politeness, several students pulled out their phones, ready to capture what they assumed would be an embarrassing moment. Tom, who had been watching the exchange with concern, approached May. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. "They're just being mean." But May was already sitting down on the bench, adjusting its height and position with the familiarity of someone who had done so countless times before. Her fingers hovered over the keys as she closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and tried to ignore the snickers and whispers around her. For a brief moment, doubt crept in. The piano was indeed magnificent, far superior to anything she had played before. What if she wasn't good enough? What if they were right to mock her? But then she remembered her father's words. Music isn't about impressing others. It's about expressing what's in your heart. With that thought, May placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. The room fell silent as May's fingers touched the keys. For a moment, nothing happened, and several students exchanged knowing looks, their phones still raised to capture her failure. Then, music filled the space. Not the hesitant notes of a beginner, but the confident sound of someone who had spent years mastering their craft. May played Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor, a piece known for its technical difficulty and emotional depth. Her small hands moved with surprising strength and precision, coaxing sounds from the grand piano that many of the students had never managed to produce despite years of lessons and practice. The phones that had been raised to record her humiliation slowly lowered as jaws dropped in disbelief. Lily's smirk faded, replaced by a look of shock and confusion. Tom stood in the corner, a wide grin spreading across his face as he watched the other students' reactions. May was lost in the music, Her eyes closed as her fingers danced across the keys. She had played this piece hundreds of times on her old upright piano at home, but never on an instrument like this. The Steinway responded to her touch in ways her piano never could, allowing her to express every nuance of emotion the composer had intended. When she reached the thunderous middle section, her entire body moved with the music, her face reflecting the passion behind the notes. There was no sign of the shy, quiet girl who had stood in the doorway just days ago. In her place was an artist, confident and in complete control. The final notes lingered in the air, and for a moment no one moved or spoke. Then Tom started clapping, breaking the spell. A few other students joined in, their applause hesitant at first but growing stronger. Lily remained frozen, her face a mix of emotions she couldn't quite hide. "Where did you learn to play like that?" she finally asked, her voice lacking its usual confidence. Before May could answer, Mrs. Reed walked back into the room, stopping abruptly when she noticed May at the piano. "I'm sorry," May said quickly, standing up and moving away from the instrument. "I shouldn't have. Was that you playing just now?" Mrs. Reed asked, her expression unreadable. May nodded, preparing herself for a scolding about touching the school's prized possession without permission. Instead, Mrs. Reed's face broke into a wide smile. "That was extraordinary. I heard it from down the hall and thought one of our guest instructors had arrived early." She approached May, looking at her with new interest. "How long have you been playing?" "Since I was 5, May replied softly, uncomfortable with the attention now focused on her. "And who taught you? You must have had an exceptional teacher." May hesitated, then said simply, "My father taught me." "Your father must be quite the pianist himself," Mrs. Reed said. "He is," May agreed. Offering no further explanation, the bell rang, signaling the end of the period. Students gathered their belongings, still casting curious glances at May as they filed out of the room. Lily lingered, clearly wanting to say something, but ultimately left without a word. "May, would you stay for a moment?" Mrs. Reed asked as the others departed. Tom gave May an encouraging nod before leaving her alone with the teacher. "I'd like you to consider performing in our winter showcase," Mrs. Reed said once they were alone. "We've never had a transfer student participate before, but I'd be willing to make an exception in your case." May's eyes widened. "But what about the auditions? I thought they were already over." "They are, but I have some discretion as the department head." Mrs. Reed smiled warmly. "You have a rare gift, May. It would be a shame not to share it." "I don't know," May said hesitantly. "I've never played in front of an audience before. Just my family." "Think about it," Mrs. Reed encouraged. "No pressure. But if you decide you're interested, come see me by the end of the week." She glanced at her watch. "You should get to your next class. I'll write you a note explaining why you're late." As May walked to her history class, clutching Mrs. Reed's note, she felt strangely light, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. For weeks she had hidden a part of herself, afraid of standing out or drawing attention. Now that her secret was out, she felt both relieved and terrified. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Students who had never noticed her before now stared as she walked by, whispering behind their hands. A few even approached her between classes, asking where she had learned to play like that or if she was a child prodigy. "I'm not a prodigy," she told one particularly persistent boy. "I just practice a lot." By lunchtime, word had spread throughout the school about the new girl who had stunned everyone in the music room. When May entered the cafeteria carrying her packed lunch, she found Tom waving her over to his table. "The mysterious pianist joins us mere mortals," he joked as she sat down across from him. "You're the talk of the school, you know." "I didn't mean to be," May said, opening her lunchbox. "That's what makes it even better," Tom replied. "You weren't showing off. You were just being you." He leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell anyone you could play like that?" May shrugged. "No one asked," Tom laughed. "Fair enough. But seriously, why keep it a secret? You could have been part of the music program from day one." "I wasn't trying to keep it a secret," May explained. "It's just, my father always taught me that music is about the sound, not the person making it. He doesn't believe in using talent to gain attention or popularity." "Your dad sounds pretty wise," Tom said. "And speaking of your dad, who exactly is he?" "The way you played that Rachmaninoff, that's not something you learn from just any piano teacher." Before May could answer, Lily appeared at their table, flanked by 2 of her friends. The cafeteria quieted as students watched. curious about this confrontation between the music program's star and the new girl who had upstaged her. "Mind if we join you?" Lily asked, her tone polite but strained. Tom raised his eyebrows in surprise but moved over to make room. Lily sat down beside him, directly across from May. "I wanted to apologize for earlier," Lily said, the words clearly difficult for her. "What I said was unkind." May nodded, accepting the apology without comment. "I've been playing piano since I was 3, Lily continued, a hint of her usual confidence returning. "My parents hired the best teachers, sent me to summer programs at Juilliard, paid for master classes with famous pianists. I've won every competition I've entered since I was 7. She paused, studying May. "But I've never played Rachmaninoff the way you did today." It wasn't quite a compliment, more of an admission, but May appreciated the honesty behind it. "Mrs. Reed asked me if I would mind sharing my solo spot in the showcase," Lily added. "I told her I thought it was a great idea." "That's very generous of you," May said, surprised. "Not really," Lily admitted with a small laugh. She wasn't actually asking, but I decided I'd rather appear gracious than resentful. She leaned forward. "So are you going to tell us who your father is? Some famous concert pianist we should know about?" May hesitated. She wasn't ashamed of her father, quite the opposite. But she had always kept his identity private, just as he had taught her. In their previous town it had been easier. No one had expected much from the quiet Chinese girl who lived in the small apartment above the laundromat. "He's just my dad," she said finally. "He loves music and taught me to love it too." Lily clearly wasn't satisfied with this answer, but before she could press further, the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. "This conversation isn't over," Lily told May as they gathered their things. "I'm going to figure out who your father is one way or another." As the days passed, May found herself spending more time in the music room. Mrs. Reed gave her permission to use the piano whenever it wasn't needed for regular classes, often staying late to listen as May practiced. "Have you thought about my offer?" Mrs. Reed asked one afternoon. "The showcase is only 6 weeks away." May nodded. "I'd like to try if you still want me to participate." "Wonderful." Mrs. Reed clapped her hands together. "We'll need to select the right piece. Something that highlights your technical ability but also allows for emotional expression." "Actually," May said, "I was thinking of playing something my father wrote. It's never been performed in public before." Mrs. Reed's eyes lit up with interest. "Your father composes as well. I'd love to hear it." May reached into her backpack and pulled out a worn folder containing handwritten sheet music. She handed it to Mrs. Reed, who studied it with growing amazement. "This is extraordinary," she said after a few minutes. "The complexity, the harmonics. May, who exactly is your father?" May took a deep breath. She had been avoiding this question, but she knew she couldn't keep the secret much longer, especially not if she was going to perform his music. "My father is—" The door to the music room opened, and Tom burst in out of breath and excited. "May, there you are. You need to come with me right now." "What's wrong?" May asked, alarmed by his urgency. "Nothing's wrong," Tom assured her. "But I just overheard something in the office. The principal was talking to someone on the phone about the showcase, and I heard your name." "My name?" May was confused. "Yes, and get this, they're bringing in a special guest performer. Some famous pianist who's in town for a concert at the Symphony Hall." Tom's eyes were wide. "May, they said he specifically requested to attend because his daughter goes here." His daughter, who just joined the school a few weeks ago. Mrs. Reed looked from Tom to May, realization dawning on her face. "May, is your father—" May nodded slowly, finally ready to share the truth. "My father is Chen Li Wei." The name hung in the air like a musical note that refused to fade. Chen Li Wei, one of the most celebrated pianists in the world, known for his emotional interpretations of classical masterpieces and his own hauntingly beautiful compositions. A man whose concerts sold out within minutes of tickets going on sale, who had performed for presidents and royalty, and he was May's father. Mrs. Reed sank into the nearest chair, her hand covering her mouth. "Chen Li Wei," she repeated, as if saying the name might make the connection more believable. "I've attended 3 of his concerts. I have all of his recordings." She looked at May with new eyes. "Why didn't you say anything?" Me shifted uncomfortably under the teacher's gaze. "My father believes that talent should stand on its own, without the weight of a famous name behind it. He wanted me to experience school like any other student. Tom let out a low whistle. Some experience. They treated you like you were invisible for weeks. Which was actually kind of nice, May admitted with a small smile. At my old school, everyone knew who my father was. Teachers gave me special treatment. Students pretended to be my friends just to get concert tickets. Here I was just me. Until you sat down at that piano, Tom pointed out. Mrs. Reed was still processing this revelation. The piece you showed me, the one your father composed, has it really never been performed in public? May nodded. He wrote it last year during our time in Vienna. He said it wasn't ready yet, that something was missing. A shadow crossed her face. After my mother died, he stopped composing for a while. This piece was the first one he completed since then. I'm so sorry about your mother, Mrs. Reed said gently. It's been 2 years. May replied. She was a violinist. They met during a concert tour in Shanghai. A heavy silence filled the room, broken only when the school bell rang in the distance. The principal wants to see you in his office. Tom remembered suddenly. That's what I came to tell you before. Well, before the bombshell. You should go, Mrs. Reed agreed. And May, I understand why you kept this to yourself. But the news will spread quickly now. Are you prepared for that? May took a deep breath. I guess I'll have to be. As they walked to the principal's office, Tom kept glancing at May as if seeing her for the first time. So what's it like? Being the daughter of someone famous? Mostly normal, May said. He's just my dad. He helps me with homework, makes terrible jokes, burns toast, and happens to be a world-class pianist who teaches you to play like an angel, Tom added with a grin. There's that too, May admitted. When they reached the principal's office, the secretary immediately ushered May inside while Tom waited in the outer office. Principal Davis, a tall man with graying hair and kind eyes, rose from behind his desk. May, thank you for coming. Please have a seat. May sat down, hands folded in her lap, wondering how much he knew. I just got off the phone with your father, Principal Davis began, confirming her suspicions. He wanted to discuss his visit for our winter showcase. I see, May said quietly. The principal studied her for a moment. You know, when you enrolled here, your father asked us to treat you like any other student. He was very specific about not drawing attention to your connection to him. He leaned forward. I understand from Mrs. Reed that your classmates discovered your talent today. May nodded. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Well, it seems the cat is out of the bag, as they say. He smiled warmly. Your father thought you might be feeling a bit overwhelmed, so he wanted me to check on you. I'm okay, May assured him. Just not used to all the attention. He also mentioned that he'd be coming to school tomorrow to discuss the showcase. Performance with Mrs. Reed. He thought you might want some time to prepare your friends. May almost laughed at that. Friend, singular. She had Tom, and that was about it. Though after today, she suspected she would have many people suddenly interested in becoming her friend. When she left the principal's office, Tom was waiting, practically bouncing with excitement. So, what did he say? Is your dad really coming here? Tomorrow, May confirmed, her stomach tightening at the thought. He's meeting with Mrs. Reed about the showcase. This is huge, Tom exclaimed. Wait until everyone finds out. They already have, May said, nodding toward a group of students huddled nearby, phones in hand, casting glances in her direction. News travels fast. Sure enough, by the end of the school day, the entire student body seemed to know that Chen Liwei's daughter was among them. May received more smiles and waves in those few hours than she had in all her weeks at Westlake. Lily caught up with her as she was leaving school. So, she said, falling into step beside May, Chen Liwei is your father. It wasn't a question, but May nodded anyway. That explains a lot, Lily continued. I saw him perform in New York last year. My parents paid a fortune for front row seats. May wasn't sure how to respond to that, so she remained silent. Is it true he's coming here tomorrow? Lily asked. Yes, he's meeting with Mrs. Reed about the showcase. Lily's face lit up. Do you think he'd sign my program from his concert? I still have it. And there it was, the familiar shift from seeing May as a person to seeing her as access to her famous father. She had hoped things might be different here, but some patterns were universal. You could ask him yourself, May said, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. Great, I will. Lily hesitated, then added, I meant what I said at lunch, you know. About your playing. You're really good, famous father or not. It was as close to genuine as Lily had been since they met, and May appreciated the effort. Thanks. That night May could barely sleep. She paced her small bedroom in the apartment she shared with her father, wondering how everything would change once he came to school. Part of her wished she had never touched that piano, that she had remained invisible. But a larger part was relieved. Keeping secrets was exhausting, and there was something freeing about being recognized for her own talent, even if people now saw her differently because of her father. Her dad found her sitting at their upright piano at midnight, playing softly. Nervous about tomorrow? He asked, sitting beside her on the bench. A little, she admitted. Everything's going to change. He nodded thoughtfully. Change isn't always bad, you know. Sometimes it's necessary for growth. Did the principal tell you what happened today? How everyone found out? He did? Her father smiled. He said you played Rachmaninoff and stunned the entire music department. I didn't mean to, May said. I know. That's what makes it special. He placed his hands on the keys beside hers, playing a simple melody that she recognized from her childhood. Your mother used to say that true music comes from necessity, not from showing off. May joined in, her notes intertwining with his as they had done thousands of times before. I miss her. Me too, he said softly. Every day. But when you play, I hear her in your music. They continued playing together, their duet filling the small apartment with warmth and memory. When they finished, her father kissed the top of her head. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that you are more than my daughter, more than a pianist. You are May, and that is enough. The next morning, May arrived at school earlier than usual, hoping to avoid the inevitable stares and questions. To her surprise, Tom was waiting by her locker. Thought you might want some moral support, he explained. Today's going to be intense. You didn't have to come early for me, May said, touched by his thoughtfulness. What are friends for? Tom grinned. Besides, I want a good seat for the show. When's your dad getting here? His meeting with Mrs. Reed is at 10, May said, checking her watch. He'll probably arrive around 9:30. He's always early for everything. As predicted, students and teachers alike seemed to find excuses to pass by the music room throughout the morning. May tried to focus on her classes, but it was difficult with so many eyes on her. During second period, a note was delivered to her math class. May Chen, please report to the music room, her teacher read aloud, causing a ripple of whispers. Tom gave her an encouraging thumbs up as she gathered her things and left the classroom. The hallways were quiet during class time, giving May a brief respite from the attention. But as she approached the music room, she heard voices, one of them instantly recognizable. Her father had arrived. Taking a deep breath, May pushed open the door. Mrs. Reed and Principal Davis were there, along with several other teachers she recognized from the arts department, and in the center of the group, looking exactly as he did at home in his casual sweater and jeans, was her father. Ah, here she is, Principal Davis said, spotting May in the doorway. Her father turned, his face lighting up with a smile that was just for her. There's my May. Something in his familiar voice and warm expression calmed the butterflies in her stomach. This was her dad, the man who made her lunch and helped her with homework. The fact that these teachers were looking at him with awe and admiration didn't change who he was to her. May walked over and stood beside him, drawing strength from his presence. We were just discussing the possibility of your father giving a master class before the showcase, Mrs. Reed explained, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Isn't that wonderful? And perhaps a small performance, one of the other teachers added eagerly. Nothing too demanding, of course. Her father placed a hand on May's shoulder. Actually, he said, his voice gentle but firm, I came here primarily as May's father, not as a performer. I would be happy to speak with your students about music education, but any performance would be May's decision. The teachers looked slightly disappointed but nodded understandingly. Of course, Principal Davis agreed quickly. We're just honored to have you here in any capacity, Mr. Chen. Please call me Li Wei, her father insisted. And if you don't mind, I'd like a few minutes alone with my daughter. Once the adults had filed out, her father turned to May with a knowing look. How are you holding up? Better now that you're here, she admitted. It's been intense. I can imagine. He walked over to the grand piano, running his fingers lightly over the keys. "This is a beautiful instrument." "It's a Steinway," May said. "Donated by a famous composer who graduated from here." "Ah, yes. Principal Davis mentioned that." He played a few notes, testing the sound. "Would you play something for me? I'd like to hear how it responds to your touch." May hesitated. "What if someone hears and comes in? Then they will have the pleasure of hearing you play," her father said simply. "No more hiding, remember?" With a nod, May sat down at the bench and began to play. Not Rachmaninoff this time, but one of her father's compositions, a piece that flowed from her fingers as naturally as breathing. It was like having a conversation with him through music, each note carrying memories and emotions they had shared. When she finished, she heard applause not just from her father, but from the doorway where a crowd had gathered. Students and teachers stood watching, their faces reflecting amazement and appreciation. "That was beautiful," Mrs. Reed said, stepping forward. "What was that piece?" "I don't recognize it." "It's called May's Lullaby," her father answered, his eyes shining with pride. "I wrote it for her when she was born." A murmur ran through the crowd as this information sank in. May felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. No more secrets, no more hiding. Just her music, and the father who had taught her that both were worth sharing with the world. Word spread quickly through Westlake Academy that Chen Li Wei was in the building. Students who had never shown any interest in music suddenly found reasons to walk past the music room, hoping for a glimpse of the famous pianist. Teachers abandoned their lesson plans to stop by and introduce themselves. Even the school custodian, an elderly man who usually kept to himself, lingered nearby, polishing the same spot on the floor for nearly 20 minutes. Principal Davis had to station himself outside the music room door to maintain some semblance of order. "Please return to your classes," he repeated to the growing crowd. "Mr. Chen will be speaking to the music students during 5th period. If you're not in the music program, you need to be in your regular classes." Inside the music room, May watched as her father chatted easily with Mrs. Reed, discussing everything from the acoustics of the room to the school's curriculum. He had always had this gift, making people feel comfortable, bridging the gap that his fame often created. It was one of the many things she admired about him. "May tells me you've invited her to perform in the winter showcase," he said to Mrs. Reed. "I think that's a wonderful opportunity." "We would be honored," Mrs. Reed replied, still seeming a bit starstruck despite her professional demeanor. "Actually, May mentioned performing one of your compositions, something that hasn't been heard in public before." Her father raised an eyebrow, glancing at May. "Did she now? That's quite ambitious." "I thought it might be special," May explained, "but only if you're okay with it." He considered this for a moment. "The new piece? The one I've been working on?" May nodded. "I've been practicing it from your drafts. I know it's not finished yet, but it's beautiful, Dad." "It's missing something," he said, echoing what he had told her before. "I can't quite put my finger on it." "Perhaps hearing it played by someone else might help," Mrs. Reed suggested. "Sometimes a fresh perspective is all we need." The bell rang, signaling the end of 3rd period. Mrs. Reed checked her watch. "The advanced music students will be here in a few minutes for their class. Would you be willing to speak with them briefly, Mr. Chen? They would be thrilled." "Of course," he agreed. "And please call me Li Wei." As the students filed in, their eyes widened at the sight of Chen Li Wei standing casually beside the piano. Lily was one of the first to enter, clutching what appeared to be a concert program. She approached somewhat hesitantly, which struck May as unusual for the normally confident girl. "Mr. Chen," Lily began, her voice higher than normal, "I'm a huge fan of your work. I saw you perform Chopin's Ballad No. 1 in New York last year. It was life-changing." She held out the program. "Would you mind signing this?" "Not at all," May's father said kindly, taking the offered program and pen. "What's your name?" Lily Parker." "Ah, Lily, May has mentioned you." He signed the program with a flourish. "I understand you're quite the pianist yourself." Lily blushed. "I try to be. Nothing like you or May. Every musician has their own voice," he told her. "The important thing is to find yours and nurture it." By the time all the students had settled in, nearly 30 teenagers sat cross-legged on the floor, gazing up at May's father with expressions ranging from awe to nervous excitement. Mrs. Reed stood at the front of the room, beaming as if she had personally arranged for a royal visit. "Class, as you know, we have a very special guest today. Mr. Chen Liwei has graciously agreed to speak with us about his experiences as a musician and to answer a few of your questions." She turned to him with a gesture that invited him to take over. May's father stepped forward, his presence immediately commanding the room without any apparent effort on his part. "Thank you for the warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here at Westlake, where my daughter has found such a supportive community." He spoke for about 15 minutes, sharing stories from his early days as a student, his first major performances, and the challenges of balancing artistic integrity with commercial success. The students hung on his every word, occasionally glancing at May as if seeing her in a new light. "But enough about me," he said finally. "I understand you all are preparing for a showcase. Perhaps a few of you would be willing to play for me. I'd love to hear what you're working on." A nervous silence fell over the room. Even Lily, usually the first to volunteer, seemed hesitant to play in front of the world-renowned pianist. "I'll go first," offered a boy with glasses whom May recognized as one of the more talented pianists in the school. He moved to the piano and began playing a Beethoven sonata, his fingers slightly stiff with nervousness. May's father listened intently, his expression thoughtful. When the boy finished, he offered specific, constructive feedback, praising his technical skill while suggesting ways to bring more emotion to certain passages. 3 more students played, each receiving the same careful attention and thoughtful advice. Finally, Mrs. Reed turned to Lily. "Perhaps you'd like to share your showcase piece with Mr. Chen." Lily hesitated, then nodded, making her way to the piano. "I'm playing Debussy's Clair de Lune," she said, her voice steadier than May had expected. As Lily played, May noticed something different about her performance. The technical skill was still there, but there was a vulnerability, a genuine emotion that she hadn't displayed before. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment before erupting in applause. "Beautiful," May's father said sincerely. "You have a natural sensitivity to the emotional landscape of the piece. Have you considered exploring more of Debussy's work? I think your interpretive style would suit his compositions well." Lily's face lit up at the praise. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. I would love to explore more of his work." "Now," he continued, turning to the class, "I understand my daughter has been invited to perform in your showcase as well." He looked at May. "Perhaps you would play the piece you're considering?" "I believe Mrs. Reed hasn't heard it yet." May felt a flutter of nervousness. She had practiced her father's composition many times at home, but playing it in front of an audience, especially one that included the composer himself, was different. "It's okay if you're not ready," her father said gently, sensing her hesitation. "No, I want to," May said, finding her courage. She moved to the piano and took a deep breath. "This piece is called After Rain. My father composed it last year." The room fell silent as she began to play. The piece started softly, like the gentle patter of raindrops, building gradually into a complex interplay of melodies that evoked the freshness and renewal that comes after a storm. As she played, May lost herself in the music, forgetting the audience, forgetting even that her father was watching. She added subtle variations to certain passages, following her instincts rather than playing exactly what was written. When the final notes faded, she looked up to find her father staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. For a moment, she worried that she had taken too many liberties with his composition. "That's it," he said softly, almost to himself. "That's what was missing." He came to the piano, excitement in his eyes. "Those variations you added in the middle section, play them again." May replayed the section, and her father nodded, increasingly animated. Yes, yes. The counterpoint, the way you resolved that minor seventh, it changes everything." He turned to Mrs. Reed. "Do you have staff paper? I need to write this down before I forget." As Mrs. Reed hurried to find paper, the students exchanged confused glances. Tom, who had slipped into the back of the classroom a few minutes earlier, caught May's eye and gave her a thumbs up. "What just happened?" Lily whispered to May. "I think I helped him finish his piece," May replied, still a bit stunned herself. When the bell rang, signaling the end of the period, the students filed out reluctantly, many of them stopping to thank May's father or ask one final question. Eventually, only May, her father, Mrs. Reed, and Tom remained. "That was incredible," Tom said, approaching May. "Your dad is just as cool as you said. And that piece you played, wow." Thanks, May said, feeling a strange mix of pride and embarrassment. Her father, who had been scribbling furiously on the staff paper, looked up with a broad smile. May, you've done it. You've solved the puzzle I've been struggling with for months. I just played it the way I felt it, she said. Exactly, he replied. You made it your own. Added your voice to mine. He turned to Mrs. Reed. The piece for the showcase, it should be credited as a collaboration. After Rain, by Chen Liwei and Mei Chen. Mrs. Reed's eyes widened. A world premiere of a collaboration between you and your daughter? The showcase will be the event of the season. I can help with the programs, Tom volunteered. I work on the school paper, so I have access to the good printer. As they discussed the logistics, May felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Lily standing there, having apparently returned to the room. Your dad is amazing, Lily said, and so are you. She hesitated, then continued. I'm sorry about what I said that day about you being a nobody. I was wrong. It's okay, May said. You didn't know me. No, it's not okay, Lily insisted. It wouldn't have been okay even if your dad wasn't famous. I was being a jerk because I was scared of competition. She took a deep breath. Anyway, I was wondering if maybe we could practice together sometimes. I could use some help with my Debussy and... She trailed off, looking uncharacteristically unsure of herself. I'd like that, May said, surprised to find that she meant it. The next few weeks passed in a blur of rehearsals and preparations. Word spread throughout the community about Chen Liwei's involvement in the showcase, and tickets sold out within days. Additional seats had to be added to accommodate the demand. May spent her afternoons practicing with her father, refining their collaborative piece. Sometimes Lily would join them, soaking up advice from both Chens and gradually becoming a friend rather than just a classmate. Tom took his role as unofficial publicist seriously, creating posters and programs that highlighted all the performers equally, though he couldn't resist adding a special note about the world premiere of After Rain. The day before the showcase, May found herself alone in the music room, running through the piece one final time. The nervousness she had felt initially had transformed into excited anticipation. Tomorrow she would share the stage with her father, presenting their music to the world. As she played the final notes, she heard applause from the doorway. Looking up, she saw her father watching her with pride. Ready for tomorrow? He asked. I think so, she said. Are you? He smiled. Do you know I've performed in Carnegie Hall, the Sydney Opera House, the Berlin Philharmonic, but I've never been more excited for a concert than I am for tomorrow. Because of the piece? May asked. Because of you, he replied simply. Watching you find your place here, seeing you share your gift without fear. It's been the greatest joy of my life. May felt tears prick her eyes. I wish Mom could be here. She is, in a way, her father said softly. In the music. In you. He came to sit beside her on the bench. You know, your mother once told me that the greatest legacy we leave isn't our recordings or our compositions. It's the love we put into teaching the next generation. May leaned her head against his shoulder, drawing strength from his presence as she always had. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges and triumphs, but for now, this moment, sitting beside her father at the piano that had changed everything, was exactly where she wanted to be. The day of the winter showcase arrived with a buzz of excitement that could be felt throughout Westlake Academy. The school auditorium, normally used for weekly assemblies and drama productions, had been transformed for the evening. Fresh flowers adorned the stage, professional lighting had been installed, and a team of sound engineers made last-minute adjustments to ensure perfect acoustics. Backstage, students in formal attire paced nervously, some running through their pieces one final time on imaginary keyboards, others practicing breathing exercises to calm their nerves. Mrs. Reed moved among them like a ship's captain, offering encouragement and reminders about stage presence. Remember, it's not just about playing the notes correctly, she told a particularly anxious violinist. It's about sharing the music with your audience. Connect with them. In a small practice room off to the side, May sat with her father, both dressed in elegant concert black. They weren't speaking much, having already said everything that needed to be said during their weeks of preparation. Instead, they shared a comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts as they mentally prepared for their performance. Nervous? Her father asked finally, watching as May fidgeted with the sleeve of her dress. A little, she admitted. This is the biggest audience I've ever played for. It gets easier, he assured her. Though I still get butterflies before every performance, even after all these years. You do? May looked surprised. Her father always seemed so composed on stage, so completely in control. Of course. It means you care about what you're doing. He reached over and took her hand. The day I stop feeling nervous before a concert is the day I should probably retire. There was a knock at the door and Tom poked his head in. Sorry to interrupt, he said, his eyes widening slightly at the sight of Chen Li Wei in full concert attire. Mrs. Reed asked me to tell you that the auditorium is full. They've had to add more chairs in the back, and there are some reporters here too. Reporters. May's stomach tightened. You didn't tell me there would be press, her father sighed. I'm sorry, May, I should have expected this. News travels fast in the music world. When people heard I was premiering a new piece with my daughter. He trailed off, looking genuinely apologetic. It's okay, May said, trying to convince herself as much as him. I can do this, of course you can, Tom said loyally. You're going to be amazing. Both of you, he grinned. Anyway, I got you something. From behind his back, he produced a small bouquet of white flowers. For good luck. They're beautiful, May said, touched by the gesture. They're lily of the valley, Tom explained. My mom grows them. They mean return to happiness in flower language. He looked embarrassed suddenly. At least that's what the internet said. They're perfect, May assured him, taking the flowers and inhaling their sweet scent. Thank you, Tom. I should get back to the front, Tom said. I'm helping with the programs. Good luck. With a final wave, he disappeared. He's a good friend, May's father observed. The best, May agreed. My only friend for a while. And now? May thought about Lily, who had spent hours practicing with her over the past weeks, and the other music students who had gradually become friendly once they realized she wasn't a threat or a snob. Now I have a few more, she said with a small smile. There was another knock, and this time it was Mrs. Reed. 10 minutes, she announced. Lily's playing now. Then there are 2 more students before your performance. They could hear the delicate notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune filtering through from the stage, played with a sensitivity that made May smile. Lily had worked hard to move beyond technical perfection to find the emotional heart of the piece. She's good, May's father said approvingly. Very good. She's been practicing like crazy, May replied, sometimes until her fingers were sore. When Lily's performance ended, the applause was enthusiastic. 2 more students performed, a cellist and another pianist, and then it was time. Ladies and gentlemen, came Mrs. Reed's voice over the sound system. Westlake Academy is honored to present for the first time anywhere a special collaborative piece entitled After Rain, composed and performed by Chen Li Wei and his daughter, Mei Chen. The audience broke into applause before they even appeared on stage. As May walked out beside her father, the bright lights momentarily blinded her. She could make out only the first few rows of faces, Tom beaming at her from his seat, Lily watching intently, Principal Davis looking proud as if he had personally arranged the entire evening. The grand piano waited center stage, gleaming under the lights. Her father sat down first and May joined him on the bench. This wasn't how they had practiced. Her father had planned to stand beside the piano while she played. But something in the moment felt right about sitting together, just as they did at home. He looked at her, a question in his eyes. She nodded slightly and he smiled, understanding her unspoken request. Then he placed his hands on the keyboard, and May did the same. They began to play. The piece started gently, with her father leading the melody, while May provided a delicate counterpoint. As the music built, they exchanged roles seamlessly, their hands sometimes crossing, sometimes playing in perfect unison. The story of the piece unfolded, the heavy rainfall giving way to gentle drops, the emergence of sunlight, the renewal and hope that comes after the storm passes. May forgot about the audience, forgot about the reporters, forgot about everything except the music and the presence of her father beside her. They communicated without words, each anticipating the other's movements, building on each other's ideas. When they reached the section that May had helped complete, the part that had been missing, her father nodded slightly, encouraging her to lead. The final notes lingered in the air, soft and shimmering like the last raindrops falling from leaves after a storm has passed. For a moment, the auditorium was completely silent, as if everyone was holding their breath. Then the audience erupted. The applause was thunderous, people rising to their feet in a standing ovation that seemed to go on and on. May and her father stood bowing together as flowers were thrown onto the stage. When May looked up, she saw tears on many faces, not just Mrs. Reed and Tom, whom she expected to be emotional, but also on the faces of students who had once mocked her, teachers who had barely noticed her, and strangers who had come to hear her father play but had discovered her as well. After taking several bows, they finally made their way backstage, where Mrs. Reed hugged them both, too overcome to speak. The other performers crowded around, offering congratulations and praise. "That was incredible," Lily said, her eyes wide with genuine admiration. "I've never heard anything like it." "It really was," added the cellist who had performed earlier. "The way you two played together, it was like you could read each other's minds." May's father smiled. "Years of practice," he said simply. Later, after the showcase had ended and the audience had dispersed, May found herself back in the now empty auditorium. Her father was speaking with some reporters in another room, politely answering questions about his upcoming tour and the new piece they had premiered. She sat down at the piano, the same one she had first approached weeks ago, the instrument that had changed everything. As she ran her fingers lightly over the keys, she heard footsteps approaching. "There you are," Tom said, climbing onto the stage to join her. "Your dad's been looking for you. The reporters want to talk to you too." "I needed a minute alone," May explained. "I get it." Tom sat down beside her on the bench, careful not to touch the keys. "So how does it feel to be a star?" May laughed. "I'm hardly a star." "Are you kidding? Everyone's talking about you." "The amazing May Chen? Musical prodigy. There's already a review online calling your performance transcendent and the debut of an important new voice in classical music." "That's ridiculous," May said, though she couldn't help feeling a small thrill at the praise. It was just one performance. "The first of many," came her father's voice as he walked down the center aisle toward them. "If that's what you want." May considered this. Before coming to Westlake, she had never thought much about performing professionally. Music had been a private joy, something she shared only with her parents. But tonight, connecting with an audience, seeing how the music had moved them, it had awakened something new in her. "I don't know what I want yet," she said honestly. "But I liked tonight. I liked sharing our music with people." Her father nodded, understanding as always. "There's no rush to decide. You have time to figure it out." He glanced at his watch. "We should go. We're meeting Mrs. Reed and Principal Davis for dinner to discuss some ideas for the music program." "What kind of ideas?" May asked, intrigued. "Well," her father said, a hint of excitement in his voice, "they mentioned that many talented students can't afford private lessons or quality instruments. I was thinking about starting a scholarship fund, maybe even teaching a master class once a month." "Really?" May's face lit up. "You'd do that?" "Why not? I could come up on weekends when I'm not touring." "And you could help. You're an excellent teacher." "Me?" May was startled by the suggestion. "You've been helping Lily with her Debussy, haven't you? She told me how much she's improved thanks to your guidance." "That's different," May protested. "We're just friends practicing together." "The best teachers are often those who see themselves as fellow students," her father said. "Think about it." As they walked out of the auditorium together, May reflected on how much had changed since that first day she had timidly asked to play the piano. She had gone from being invisible to being seen, not just as Chen Liwei's daughter, but as herself, as May, with her own gifts to share. Outside, the night was clear and cool, the earlier rain having washed everything clean. The campus of Westlake Academy glowed under the streetlights, no longer an intimidating fortress but a place where she belonged. "Mr. Chen, May," called Principal Davis, waving to them from the parking lot. "We've got a reservation at Giovanni's in 15 minutes. "Coming," May's father called back. He turned to his daughter. "Ready for the next adventure?" May smiled, linking her arm through his. "Ready," she said, and meant it. As they walked toward the waiting group, Mrs. Reed, Principal Davis, Tom, and even Lily, who had apparently been invited to the dinner as well, May felt a sense of possibility unfurling before her like a road stretching into the distance. She didn't know exactly where it would lead, but for the first time, she was eager to find out. The girl who had once tried to make herself invisible now stepped confidently into the light, ready to be seen, ready to be heard, ready to share her music with the world. not because of who her father was, but because of who she was becoming. Nobody had turned into somebody, not by gaining fame or recognition, but by finding the courage to be herself. And that, May realized, was the most beautiful music of all.